I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get like this, but here I am. I always believed in honesty, in loyalty, in building a life with someone who genuinely cared. My wife, Lisa, she seemed perfect, kind, funny, always quick with a smile. We'd been together 5 years, planning a wedding that I thought would seal our future. We had everything mapped out: date, venue, the guest list. Everything was supposed to be perfect. Then one night I stumbled across something that shattered all of that. It was late, around 11 p.m., and I was browsing through her phone out of curiosity, maybe a bit of a gut feeling I ignored for too long. I never snooped, but that night something told me to check. I figured I'd see some text, some flirtation, maybe just harmless banter. What I found instead made my stomach drop. There were dozens of messages, not just from her, but from him, Tom, my best man, her best man. They'd been sneaking around for months, lying to me every single day. I could see it in their words. Flirty, intimate, secretive. I read about their plans to meet up, their late-night messages about how much they missed each other. I saw things like, "Can't wait to see you tonight," and "Sorry I couldn't tell him, I didn't want to hurt him," all written in her own words. It was like being punched in the gut. My head spun. I felt cold sweat bead on my forehead and my hands trembling just holding the phone. I didn't want to believe it at first. Maybe I was reading too much into it. Maybe it was a joke. But then I saw the pictures, screenshots of their conversations with dates clearly marked. And that's when I saw the last message from her, the one that made everything crystal clear. "Meet me at the hotel at 8. I can't wait to finally be with you." My knees nearly buckled. That was the night I realized she'd been lying to me for months. She had been seeing him behind my back, probably during the weekends I thought she was at her parents' house. I felt a kind of rage I'd never experienced before. The kind that makes your chest squeeze and your vision blur. I wanted to scream, but all I could do was stare at the screen, my mind racing through every memory, every joke, every moment I thought was normal. Everything was a lie. I remember clutching the phone so tight that my fingers ached. I kept replaying the message in my head. My wife, the woman I trusted with my whole life, was cheating on me with my best man. It felt like I had been punched again, only this time it was a punch to my entire sense of reality. I never confronted her that night. I just sat there in my dim apartment with the weight of her betrayal pressing down on me. My palms were slick with sweat and I could feel my heartbeat pounding in my ears. How could I have been so blind? How did I miss all the subtle signs? She had been avoiding me lately, a little more distant, answers shorter. But I told myself she was stressed, busy with work, or maybe just tired. Now I saw the truth. The signs were right there, glaring at me. The worst part, I knew this wasn't just a fling. It was more than that. This was her secret, her escape plan, her new life. And I was just the fool who had built a future on a house of cards. I kept thinking, what do I do now? Do I confront her? Do I keep quiet and plan my revenge? Or do I just cut and run? The anger was bubbling up, but beneath it all, there was this sinking feeling that I'd lost everything I thought was real. She'd lied to me for months, and I didn't even see it coming. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy knot in my stomach. The image of those texts haunted me as I got ready for work. I kept thinking about the wedding, the promises we made, and how I had unknowingly been played. My mind kept circling back to him, Tom, my best man, my friend. The betrayal cut deeper than I expected. I knew I couldn't keep this secret. I needed to decide what was next. I just didn't know if I was ready for the confrontation or if I should go for something different, something that would make her regret what she'd done. I wasn't about to let her get away with it without consequences. Not this time, not after what I'd seen. That night I sat alone, staring at the phone that held all the proof. My stomach clenched again as I thought about what I was going to do, but deep down I knew I wouldn't let her keep lying. I'd find a way to make her see that I was not some fool to be played, and I'd do it with a plan she'd never see coming. The next few days were a blur of chaos. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, heard her laughter, and then the messages. The trust I'd built with her felt shattered, like someone had taken a hammer to a fragile glass sculpture. I'd go from hot anger to cold numbness, only to feel it all boil up again. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been played for a fool, that the woman I loved didn't just cheat but lied right to my face for months. I kept rereading those messages. The tone, the words, They all screamed that this wasn't some drunken mistake or a one-time slip. It was calculated, deliberate. She had been sneaking around behind my back, lying about where she was, who she was with. And Tom, my supposed best man, he'd been part of it all, probably knew, maybe even encouraged it. It made me furious just thinking about it, but mostly I felt betrayed, deep, gut-wrenching betrayal. It was like someone had taken a knife and twisted it slowly. I decided I needed some physical proof beyond just texts. I set up a little test, if you can call it that. I knew she'd be meeting him again, that it wasn't just a one-off. So I left my phone in the apartment, acting like I was working late, and I took a walk around the block. I didn't want to seem obvious. I just needed to see if I could catch her in the act or get some confirmation. My nerves were shot, my stomach tightening into knots as I waited. Sure enough, about an hour later, I saw her car pull into a side street. I kept my distance behind some trees, watching her get out and go into a nearby hotel. The moment I saw her walk through that door, my mind went numb. I felt my fists clench, but I stayed hidden. It was all the confirmation I needed. She was meeting him again. Possibly for the same reason as before. That night I sat down with a new resolve. I'd had enough of the lies. I wasn't going to be some fool who got played for months. I had to act, and I had to do it smart. No shouting, no screaming, just a plan. I started drafting it out in my head, figuring the best way to confront her and make her realize I wasn't going to take this betrayal lying down. First, I needed to get full control of the situation. I couldn't let her find out I knew everything until I was ready. I'd gather all the evidence, the texts, the photos from that night, the hotel footage. I wanted her to see that I was serious, that I had her cornered. Then I'd confront her with everything, not allowing her to slip away or deny it. But I also knew I had to be careful. I didn't want her to destroy any evidence or destroy what little trust remained between us. My plan was simple but brutal in its honesty. I'd give her an ultimatum: tell me the truth or I'd expose her to everyone. I wanted her to feel the shame, the humiliation of being caught red-handed, not just the betrayal but the public fallout. That's when I realized I'd make her pay for what she'd done, not with violence but with her reputation. That was the only thing I could think of that would sting her properly. Over the next couple of days, I prepared everything meticulously. I made copies of all the evidence I had: screenshots, hotel receipts, messages. I set a meeting with her at her apartment, planning to catch her off guard. I didn't want to give her the chance to spin her story. When she opened the door, I was already there, standing with all the proof in my hands. She looked surprised but not entirely shocked. That told me she knew this was coming. Her face went pale and she took a step back. "What's going on?" she asked, voice trembling. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "I know everything. The texts, the meetings, the lies. I've seen enough to know I've been played for a fool." I held up my phone, the screenshots glaring at her. "Care to explain?" She looked like she was about to cry, but there was a flicker of defiance in her eyes. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered. "It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. But I'd heard enough." I saw her trembling hands, her guilty stare. That's when I realized I wasn't just ending this with a fight. I was about to turn the tables completely. Because I had one more card to play, and she wouldn't see it coming. The silence in her apartment was so thick I could feel it pressing against my chest. Her eyes darted around, searching for some way out, some excuse to explain away the mountain of evidence I was holding right in my hand. I could smell her perfume, sweet and familiar, and it made my stomach turn. All I wanted was to smash that image and get this nightmare over with. "I've been patient," I said coldly, voice steady despite the boiling rage inside me. "But I've had enough lies. You've been sneaking around with my best man, Tom, for months. That's not just a mistake. That's a betrayal that cuts deeper than I can explain." I paused, letting the weight of my words hang in the air. "So I want the truth now." She looked like she was about to break, tears welling up in her eyes. "It didn't mean anything," she whispered, voice trembling. "It was just bad judgment. I was confused and I thought I loved you, but then I met him." She trailed off, her voice cracking. "I didn't want to hurt you, but it just happened." I clenched my fists so tight that my nails dug into my palms. "You lied for months," I snapped. While I was planning our wedding, while I was imagining a future with you, you were seeing him behind my back. How could you do that? How? Her shoulders shook as she finally broke down, tears streaming down her face. I didn't mean for it to get so out of control, I swear I didn't. She looked helpless, like a child caught with her hand in the cookie jar. Please, just forgive me. I was lost and I didn't know what I wanted. I thought I loved him, but I realized now I was just afraid to be alone. I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to scream. You're not just lost, you're a liar, a cheat, and a fraud, and I'm done playing the fool. I looked her dead in the eyes, voice sharp as a knife. Now I want you to tell me the truth, everything, right here, right now, because I'm not leaving until I hear it all. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. It was never supposed to go this far, I swear. We only met a few times, but I didn't stop thinking about him. I was stupid. Her voice broke. I thought I could handle it, but I couldn't, and the worst part, I didn't want you to find out. I could feel the anger simmering under my skin, but I forced myself to stay calm. I knew I had to be strategic. Fine, I said quietly, but this isn't just about the lies anymore. I want to know everything. What you planned, how long this has been going on, and what your next move was supposed to be. She looked at the floor, trembling. I don't know what to say, she whispered. I was just so scared, and he made me feel alive again. I didn't think about the consequences. That was the moment I decided. I couldn't just walk away from this with broken words and tears. If I was going to make her understand how much she'd hurt me, I'd need to be more calculated. I'd turn this betrayal into her biggest regret, something she'd carry with her forever. I'd expose her, but not publicly, not yet. I wanted her to feel trapped, exposed, humiliated, and helpless. I know what I need to do, I said finally. And it's not about yelling or throwing things. It's about making sure you get what you truly deserve. You crossed a line, Lisa, and I promise you I'll make sure you regret it every single moment of your life from now on. Her face paled further and she looked like she was about to beg. Instead, I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots of her messages with Tom. This is just the start, I said coldly. There's a lot more I could do, but I'm giving you a choice. Come clean, tell the truth about everything, and I might just decide to cut you some slack. Or I can ruin what's left of your reputation. Your choice. She stared at the screen, her shoulders sagging under the weight of her shame. I'll tell you everything, she whispered, voice barely audible. Please, just don't destroy me. I nodded slowly, feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and disgust. I knew I'd broken her, but I also knew this wasn't over. Not yet. I'd been betrayed, yes, but now I was taking control. Because if she was going to lie, I'd make sure she paid the price. And I'd do it on my terms. That night I sat in my apartment, staring at her trembling figure across from me. She'd finally started talking, spilling everything. More details about their meetings, how long it had been going on, the little lies she told just to cover her tracks. I kept my expression neutral, but inside, every nerve was firing. I'd planned this moment for days, imagining all the ways I'd make her regret crossing me. Her voice cracked as she admitted, we met at that little coffee shop downtown, the one near my office. We talked for hours about everything and nothing. I thought I was just craving a connection, something real, something I'd missed with you. She looked down, tears streaming. I never meant to hurt you, I just got caught up. I didn't see how much I was hurting you until it was too late. I kept my eyes locked on her, feeling a dark thrill run through me. You say you didn't mean to hurt me, I said carefully. But you did. Every single day you lied, every time you kissed him, every secret meeting, those weren't accidents, they were choices, and I want to know exactly how deep this goes. She nodded slowly, voice trembling. We only met a handful of times, but it was enough to feel like I was betraying everything we had. I swear I didn't plan for it to go this far, but then it just happened. I felt alive again and I thought I could handle it. I thought I loved you, but I guess I was just afraid of being alone. I clenched my fists so tight my knuckles turned white. You were scared. That's your excuse. You lied for months, sneaking around behind my back, hiding your feelings, and then you have the nerve to say it's just fear. That's bullshit, Lisa. You knew exactly what you were doing. Her face crumpled and she looked like she was about to break. Please, she whispered, don't ruin my life over this. I'll do anything, just don't destroy me. I took a slow breath, fighting the rising rage. I had to be strategic now. I'd waited long enough to confront her, and I knew what I wanted: control. I needed her to see that she'd lost everything and that I wasn't going to be some pushover. This wasn't just about her cheating. This was about making her realize she'd crossed a line she could never undo. "Here, what's going to happen?" I said, voice steady. "You're going to tell me everything, all the details, who knew, how long this has been going on, what you plan to do next. And if I hear even a single lie, I will destroy you completely." She looked at me with wide, tearful eyes. "I swear, I'll tell you everything. Just please don't turn this into a nightmare." I nodded slowly, feeling a cold satisfaction. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots of their messages. "This is just the beginning. I've got more. I could expose you to everyone we know, ruin your reputation, make sure no one ever trusts you again." I saw her eyes flicker with fear, but I pressed on. "But I'm giving you a chance. Be honest, and maybe I'll consider a way out of this for both of us." Her lips trembled as she nodded, finally openly crying. "It's true. I was seeing him. We met at that hotel, you know, the one downtown. I was stupid. I didn't think about the consequences." I felt my jaw tight. "And what was your plan after that? Did you think about what I'd feel, what I'd do?" She looked down, sobbing quietly. "I was just so lost. I didn't think I'd get caught. I swear I didn't want to hurt you, but I was wrong." I looked away for a moment, fighting the sudden surge of anger and betrayal. I'd given her the chance to come clean, and she had. Now it was my turn. I knew I couldn't just walk away from this with a few tearful apologies. I needed to make her see that this wasn't just about a mistake, it was about consequences. "I've got one last thing for you," I said softly. "If you want to keep whatever's left of your reputation, you're going to call him Tom and tell him it's over. Tell him you're done, because I want no part of this anymore." I watched her shake her head, silent tears streaming down her face. "You're going to do it today," I added, "and I'll be watching you." She looked at me with pleading eyes, but I knew deep down she understood. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about her losing control and me finally taking it back. I felt the cold satisfaction of knowing I had her cornered, that I'd finally turned the tables in a way she'd never expect. I'd make her pay, one way or another. The day I handed her the ultimatum, I felt like I was walking a tightrope. My stomach was a mess, nervous energy twisting inside me, but I kept my face calm and cold. I knew I was about to force her into a corner she wouldn't like. She was crying a lot, saying she loved me, begging me to forgive her, but I didn't want to hear that right now. I wanted her to understand the gravity of what she'd done. She sat across from me, clutching a tissue, her hands trembling. Her voice was barely above a whisper when she finally said she'd call Tom and tell him it was over. But I could tell she wasn't convinced, probably because she knew I'd been watching her. I told her I'd be listening, that I'd make sure she followed through. That evening, I stayed close, my phone ready. I wanted her to see that I was serious. When she finally picked up her phone and dialed him, I could see her hands trembling as she pressed the buttons. "Hello, Tom," she said, voice shaky. "It's over. I'm done with you. Don't ever call or message me again." I stood behind her, watching her face as she spoke. Her eyes were red, her voice raw, but she didn't hang up. I knew she was trying to make it convincing. I stepped closer, and as soon as she finished, I reached out and took her phone from her hand. I wanted to make sure he understood she meant it. "You're not just saying it," I said calmly. "You're making it real. Send that message to him. Let him know you're finished." She hesitated, then nodded and quickly typed out a terse message. "It's over. Don't contact me again." She hit send, and I saw the message go through. Her shoulders sagged, a mixture of relief and shame. I looked her in the eyes. "Good. Now I want you to understand something. You've lost my trust, and I don't think I can ever get it back. But I'm giving you a chance to fix what's broken. If you want to save whatever's left of our relationship, then you're going to do exactly what I say from now on." Her face was a mask of exhaustion and regret. "What do you want me to do?" she asked softly. "I want you to move out," I said sharply. "Tonight, pack your things and leave. No more lies, no more secrets." I paused, making sure she understood the finality. "And I want you to think long and hard about what you've done, because I don't know if I can forgive this." She looked like she was about to argue, but then she nodded. "Okay," she whispered, "I'll leave." I handed her a small bag and watched her gather her clothes in silence. As she was packing, I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of relief and anger. I'd finally done something decisive. I'd taken back control, but I knew this wasn't just about the breakup. It was about making her understand she'd crossed a line she could never uncross. When she finished, she looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I'm sorry," she said softly, almost like a plea. "Sorry doesn't fix this," I replied coldly. "You made your choice. Now it's time to live with it." She left that night, her car disappearing into the dark, leaving me alone in the silence of the apartment. I sat on the couch, feeling the cold emptiness settle over me. For the first time in days, I took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. I looked around the room, seeing the things we shared, the photos, the little mementos, and finally understood that I'd lost not just a partner but a part of myself. But I also knew I'd won something else, my dignity. I'd taken control of a nightmare I never thought I'd face. That night, I finally allowed myself to breathe again. For all the pain, I understood one thing: I was done running from what was real, and no matter how much it hurt, I'd come out stronger. The takeaway: sometimes you have to tear everything down to rebuild properly. The days that followed felt like walking through a fog. My apartment was eerily quiet, every corner a reminder of what was lost and what I'd just done. I hadn't spoken to Lisa since she left, and honestly, I didn't want to. I needed time to process everything, to figure out what I'd gained and what I'd lost. But more than anything, I felt a strange clarity, like I'd been holding my breath for too long, and finally I could breathe again. I spent a lot of time reflecting on the whole mess. Yeah, I was hurting. Yeah, it stung like hell to see her walk out that door, knowing she'd betrayed me in the worst way possible. But I also realized I'd taken a stand. I'd stopped being the passive victim in this nightmare and finally fought back. That's what made me feel more in control than I had in weeks. I eventually made a plan to move on. I started by changing my routine, blocking her from social media and deleting everything that reminded me of her. I didn't want to keep dragging that heartbreak around. I also reached out to a few friends, people I trusted, who reminded me that I deserved better, that I wasn't defined by her betrayal. One afternoon, I took the keys to her apartment and handed them over to the landlord. I wanted to cut all ties, no lingering debts, no unfinished business. I needed that final act to feel like I was closing a chapter. As I turned in the keys, I felt a strange sense of liberation. It was like I'd finally laid the ghost of that relationship to rest. A week later, I started seeing a counselor. It helped to talk through everything: the betrayal, the anger, the pain. I learned that healing isn't linear. Some days are going to be worse than others. But I also learned that I was stronger than I gave myself credit for. I'd survived something I never thought I'd face and come out the other side still standing. Looking back, I realized this whole experience taught me a lot about trust, boundaries, and self-respect. I found out I was capable of more than I thought: more resilience, more clarity, more courage. And I learned that sometimes you have to burn everything down to rebuild something better. Not because you want to destroy, but because you want to create something real, something that's truly yours. In the end, I didn't just walk away from her betrayal. I walked into a new chapter of my life. One where I'm finally learning to trust myself again, to recognize my worth. It wasn't easy, and honestly, it still hurts sometimes. But I know now that I don't have to settle for lies and betrayal. I deserve honesty and kindness, and most importantly, I deserve to be loved for who I really am, not who someone pretends I should be. So if there's one thing I'd say to anyone reading this, it's this: don't be afraid to take control. The pain of betrayal is terrible, but the pain of staying silent, of letting someone walk all over you, is worse. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away, rebuild your life, and choose yourself instead of the hurt you've endured. Because at the end of the day, no one has the right to make you feel small, and you owe it to yourself to keep fighting for your happiness, even when the road gets rough.